Hi everyone, I pre-ordered Jenny Death! I pre-ordered Jenny Death! Here, the internet's busiest music nerd. And it's time for a review of the new Clarence Clarity album. No. Now. Let's put the washed out up there. Cool. Clarence Clarity is a UK-based producer, singer, songwriter. He just dropped his debut album over here via Bella Union, but the reception to this record, at least from what I've observed thus far, has been a little quiet, which is a bit of a head scratcher for me because there's a lot of great things going on with this LP. I think it has a few solid singles, but I won't say that getting into this album, enjoying it, will exactly be easy. For one, Clarence is a smaller name right now, which makes some people apprehensive. This album here is an hour long, pretty long for a debut record. And musically and stylistically with this new album over here, he's taking an experimental and sort of strange approach to R&B and pop music. I think pulling from a lot of radio and commercial R&B and pop music from the 2000s, which isn't always people's cup of tea, especially right now with there being so much saturation in the alternative R&B world. Maybe some people might be put off by the cover art here, which kind of looks like some gimmicky vaporwave inspired piece of aesthetics. And Mr. Clarity over here actually saw fit to name his project after the second tier meme of some kid having an epiphany in the middle of a rave. Hopefully these things don't really get in anyone's way of enjoying this album. As far as the music goes on this LP, if you're into a lot of these newer alternative R&B artists, I don't think this album is going to be that much of a stretch. I think Clarence Clarity has a lot in common with people like James Blake, How to Dress Well, Auteur Nouveau. But rather than taking the same slow, atmospheric, dramatic approach that they've taken, Clarence's production style is glitchy, it's dense, it's in your face, it's loud, and it's bold. The tracks on this LP are loaded with heavy beats and densely layered synthesizers, loads of lead vocals and background vocals, some of which are chipmunked or pitched to be lower. There are some psychedelic effects in the mix here too, to the point where some of the songs in the track listing here are kind of obscured more than they are enhanced, sort of like on that new Animal Collective album, Centipede Hurts. And I could actually see Clarence pulling a little bit of influence from a band like Animal Collective, or at least grabbing the ears of fans of Animal Collective, maybe even the ears of people who might like the vocals of a Mr. David Longstreth of Dirty Projectors. But even with all this cacophony in a lot of the instrumentals on this album, Clarence's vocal melodies and his songs are often too bright and too sharp to be totally drowned out. Clarence's vocals shine through as soulful and passionate and eccentric, but not every track here has pop intentions behind it. There's really like a gradient of difficulty and experimentation with each track here, like the second half of the song With No Fear toward the back end of this LP, which sounds like a very glitchy, disorienting sound collage, kind of inspired by John Cage's Williams mix. And then you have songs like Those Who Can't Cheat, where despite the maximal approach to production and just so many sounds hitting you from every direction, just these plinky, metallic, what sounds like glockenspiels layered on top of one another, just like very tiny toy piano chords. And then you have these sprinkled arpeggios that sound like they're warped and reversed, or a kind of effect. Heavy beats, funky bass line. This song is catchy through and through. It's low down, it's dirty. It has kind of a very sinister vibe to it, despite how danceable and sweet and instantaneous it is. For me, tracks like this and Bucktooth Particle Smashers and Alive in the Septic Tank are just instant hits. But sometimes Clarence will take an incredibly catchy song and purposefully derail it with sound effects, bursts of noise, sudden gaps of complete silence, glitched out grooves, and other unexpected surprises, kind of like the song Off My Grid, which is really one of the best ballads on here and is just obscured a little bit with just a lot of fuzz, a lot of different noises. And then we have the song BLOODBARF 2, which has one of the more slow, sensual bass lines on the entire LP. One of the better vocal melodies too, but how Clarence subtly kind of switches up the groove and glitches out the track and adds noise here and there, it really kind of keeps you on your toes. Even though the groove might feel relaxed, the overall vibe of the song just leaves me feeling anything but. And there's something about the groove of this track to me that feels like a vaporwave song. Not that I feel like Clarence sampled the track and kind of slowed it down or something like that. It feels like he tried to make a vaporwave instrumental from scratch and then he sang over it. If you don't know what vaporwave is, click on my Floral Shop review at the end of this review. Cool? Cool. There is definitely something kind of odd and absurd with Clarence's approach to production on this album, sort of like on the new FKA Twigs album, but not nearly as smooth and ethereal. Again, Clarence is maximal, he's disorienting, he's kind of absurd, and these are things he pushes to the point where he can be kind of obnoxious on some of these tracks, like the song Will to Believe and maybe the song Meadow Hopping with the just chirpy background vocals on this track, as well as the lead lyrics on this thing about the witch house and the Catholics, the witch house and the Catholics and the witch house. It's kind of a fun song, but it also has sort of a creepy Halloween-esque beat. There are just some tracks on here where they just feel a little too goofy or kooky going down. Still, these are approaches that are not often taken with this kind of music, and for the vast majority of the 20 tracks here, they're executed pretty well. And when Clarence wants his production to be really layered and really dense with detail, but not noisy, he really wants his songs to shine through, he does it in a fantastic way, namely on the song Cancer in the Water, which feels like this big gospel-inspired fusion with 80s pop. Get off, cancer in the water. There are just so many highlights on this album from beginning to end, and despite the fact that Clarence is new, at least under this pseudonym, and we're getting 60 minutes of material, this actually wasn't that arduous of a listen. Pretty far from being one-dimensional or boring, in my opinion, from the song One Hand Washes the Other, which features these very plucky banjos, or the song The Cue, which kind of borders on glitch hop. Each instrumental here really has its own flavor. Again, with the exception of the song Meadow Hopping and a few tracks like it that had this purposefully, playfully, creepy vibe that just felt a little silly. Too silly, I guess, not to say the rest of this album takes itself super seriously, which is part of the reason why it's such a fun listen. Fun and very well written, very well put together. And even with so much well-assembled creative material here, this album really could have used a little bit of trimming, at least. It might have actually made the album overall maybe a little bit punchier, a little bit easier to digest, but still, you know, I thank and bless Mr. Clarity over here for giving us some really envelope-pushing R&B and pop with this record. Will it translate to other people? Not totally sure if that will happen, but I know it has translated for me. I'm feeling a strong 7 to a light 8 on this thing. Transition! If you've given this album a listen, what did you think of it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Why? What do you think I should review next? And that's it. Anthony Fantano, Clarence Clarity, forever! No!